Prime Minister Narendra Modi made a big announcement earlier today saying that all 3 farm laws will be repealed and the procedure will be initiated in the upcoming winter session of Parliament. That will be our top focus. Very good afternoon. I am Afrida Rahman Ali.
हमने 3 कृषि कानूनों को रिपील करने का निर्णय लिया है।
Well, so clearly this is a mega win for the farmers' movement. The centre has decided to scrap the 3 controversial farm laws. Just a few minutes post 9 a.m. this morning, PM Modi made the announcement saying despite months of negotiations and several rounds of talks, the government could not convince the protesting farmers and hence have now decided to repeal the 3 farm laws. The official revocation will take place in the winter session of Parliament end of this month. The centre has also decided to form a committee for the MSP demand of the farmers. Let's take a look at the important parts of the Prime Minister's address today, announcing the repeal of the 3 farm laws.
साथियों, मैं आज देशवासियों से क्षमा मांगते हुए सच्चे मन से और पवित्र हृदय से कहना चाहता हूं कि शायद हमारी तपस्या में ही कोई कमी रही होगी, जिसके कारण दिए के प्रकाश जैसा सत्य कुछ किसान भाइयों को हम समझा नहीं पाए। आज गुरु नानक देव जी का पवित्र प्रकाश पर्व है। ये समय किसी को भी दोष देने का नहीं है। आज मैं आपको, पूरे देश को ये बताने आया हूं कि हमने 3 कृषि कानूनों को वापस लेने का, रिपील करने का निर्णय लिया है। इस महीने के अंत में शुरू होने जा रहे संसद सत्र में, इसी महीने में हम 3 कृषि कानूनों को रिपील करने की संवैधानिक प्रक्रिया को पूरा कर देंगे। मैं आज अपने सभी आंदोलनरत किसान साथियों से आग्रह कर रहा हूं, आज गुरु पर्व का पवित्र दिन है। अब आप अपने अपने घर लौटे, अपने खेत में लौटे, अपने परिवार के बीच लौटे। आइए एक नई शुरुआत करते हैं।
Well, farmer unions meanwhile have refused to immediately end the stir and have said that they will wait for the Parliament to repeal the laws formally. Farmers point out that the minimum support price demand has not been met with and the electricity amendment bill has not been withdrawn. Let's quickly listen in to the reactions coming in from the farmer leaders.
We are being joined by Mr. Rakesh Tikait himself. सर, सबसे पहले एक आपके पिता थे जिनके सामने राजीव गांधी की सरकार 1988 में झुकी थी। 7 दिन में मांगे मनवा ली थी। आप लोगों को 1 साल लगा, लेकिन आपका आंदोलन ज्यादा बड़ा हुआ है। तो सबसे पहले तो आपकी प्रतिक्रिया ले लें इस पूरे एक अनाउंसमेंट जो आज प्रधानमंत्री नरेंद्र मोदी ने किया है। बहुत बड़ी जीत आपके मूवमेंट के लिए भी और किसानों के लिए भी।
कागज इतने नहीं मिलेगा, इतने नहीं, इनका कोई विश्वास नहीं है। ये 8 के अंक में घूमते हैं। 8 के अंक में तो जो सिक्का हुआ, जो डॉग होता है पुलिस फोर्स का, अगर चोर चोरी कर 8 के अंक में को घूम जाए तो उसको रास्ता नहीं पाता। ये 8 के अंक में घुमाते हैं, आदमी उनका वहीं घूमता रहेगा। हमें कागज हाथ में चाहिए।
अभी पूरी जीत नहीं मान रहे हैं?
अभी नहीं, पूरी जीत नहीं अभी।
अच्छा, एक आपने बात कही थी सर, बीजेपी की सफाई की बात हो रही थी। उत्तर प्रदेश के चुनाव भी सामने हैं, तो एक बार जब कागज आपको हाथ में मिल गए तो तब भी क्या बीजेपी की सफाई की बात होती रहेगी कि रुख बदलेंगे?
जब चुनाव आएगा तो करेंगे बात। अभी तो बहुत से मसले हैं, इनसे सवाल बहुत है।
टिकैत साहब, 2 चीजें थी। एक तो आप लोगों ने कृषि कानूनों को वापस लेने की बात कही थी, दूसरा एमएसपी को लेकर के भी एक ठोस कानून बनाने की बात की थी।
एमएसपी वाला तो रह रहा। अभी एमएसपी पे गारंटी कानून, 3 कानून वापसी, धरना खत्म हो जाएगा। आगे कमेटी बन जाएगी जो और मामलों पे कमेटी बातचीत करेगी।
देखिए सर, जो 3 कानून थे जो विशेषज्ञों ने भी पढ़े हैं, थोड़े बहुत हमने भी, और आपने तो बिल्कुल जाहिर सी बात है कि डिटेल में पढ़े हैं। बहुत बहुत सारी बातें उसमें आपको आपत्तिजनक लगी, इसलिए इतना बड़ा मूवमेंट हुआ है। क्या एक आधी कोई चीज जो आपको ठीक लगी हो, जिसके बारे में आप कहेंगे कि ये हम मान लेंगे और आगे बढ़ते हैं, जो नई चीजें आप ऐसा कोई
अब जो वापसी हो गई तो बीमारी का नाम क्यों लो भाई? वो बीमारी थी, कट गई, उसको तो छोड़ दो, आगे चलो।
लेकिन अब भी देखिए समस्याएं तो किसानों की है, खास करके अगर हम एपीएमसी की बात करें तो वहां भी किसानों के साथ लूटपाट होती ही है। मैं अगर महाराष्ट्र
का प्रोग्राम है कि मंडियों की बात करके कि फसलें बाहर बिक जाए और मंडी को बेचने का प्रोग्राम करो, ये पूरे देश की जमीनों पर उनकी नजरें हैं। मंडी के बाहर फसलें बेचने का कानून ला के मंडियों को बेचना चाहते हैं। देश में कोई जमीन नहीं छोड़ेंगे, सब जमीन नहीं बेचेंगे। बहुत खतरनाक सरकार है, बच के रहना।
सर आखिरी सवाल, ये तो समस्याएं थी सारी, लेकिन समाधान भी लाने पड़ेंगे। क्या आप लोगों के पास कोई ड्राफ्ट तैयार है जो लेके आप सरकार
जब सरकार बात करेगी, हमारे पास में सब चीज है।
26 तारीख वाला कार्यक्रम
26 तारीख सरकार याद रखे, 26 तारीख को सरकार को भूलना नहीं चाहिए। 26 तारीख हर महीने आवे, याद रखे 26 तारीख को।
Bharatiya Kisan Union leader Rakesh Tikait is saying, yes, the dharna will be withdrawn, but the demands remain, and he also insists that we still have a long way to go. Ye puri jeet nahi hai. So we'll discuss all these issues. Is this really a big climb down? The farm laws will be repealed, but is it being done only eyeing the state polls? What happens to agri reforms? Those are the questions I would like to address with Mr. VM Singh, National Convener, Rashtriya Kisan Mazdoor Sangathan, joining us this afternoon. And also T.S. Ramakrishnan, public policy expert. Thank you so much for joining us. Shukriya hamare saath judne ke liye. I'll just come back to the experts, but let's first listen in to what the Prime Minister said on MSP, because now that issue continues to remain, like we heard, that is not settled yet. The farm laws have been repealed. The demand for MSP assurance remains. This is what the PM said earlier on this issue.
जीरो बजट खेती यानी प्राकृतिक खेती को बढ़ावा देने के लिए देश की बदलती आवश्यकताओं को ध्यान में रखकर क्रॉप पैटर्न को वैज्ञानिक तरीके से बदलने के लिए एमएसपी को और अधिक प्रभावी और पारदर्शी बनाने के लिए ऐसे सभी विषयों पर भविष्य को ध्यान में रखते हुए निर्णय लेने के लिए एक कमेटी का गठन किया जाएगा। इस कमेटी में केंद्र सरकार, राज्य सरकारों के प्रतिनिधि होंगे, किसान होंगे, कृषि वैज्ञानिक होंगे, कृषि अर्थशास्त्री होंगे। साथियों, हमारी सरकार किसानों के हित में काम करती रही है और आगे भी करती रहेगी।
VM Singh, I would like to come to you on this issue. You heard the Prime Minister makes it clear that on the issue of MSP assurance, there will be a committee with representatives of central government, state government, farmer representatives, agricultural scientists and economists. So, A, you have the farm laws repealed. B, on the issue of MSP also, the ball has been set rolling. The Prime Minister has spelled it out how things will move forward in an effective and transparent manner, Mr. Singh. Are you happy and satisfied today with these developments?
Preeta, I want to ask you one thing. You remember 9th of November 2016 when the demonetization thing came in, the Prime Minister came on camera and said, from 12 o'clock at night, 1,000 rupees and 500 rupees notes will not be legal tender.
Yes.
Likewise, why can't he just make a thing, ordinance can be passed as such, and the bill can come in later saying nobody will buy it less than the MSP in the country. That's the end of it. This is what we are asking for today. And I don't go by what the netas say. I'm no longer sitting on a dharna. After the Prime Minister said, appreciating what he said, it is not easy for any Prime Minister to go back. You can make changes here and changes there, amendments here and amendments there. But he's done that. Thankful to him for that. But at the same time, I want to remind him, in 2013-14, he said, MSP guarantee ki baat hum tumhe denge, C2 denge. In his election manifesto, it's there. In the BJP manifesto, it's there. He made his speeches all through. That is why from the beginning, I have been emphasizing on the MSP. These 40 netas sitting out there have taken on the MSP after 8 or 9 talks. But the issue is, What is a common farmer going to gain from this agitation? 700, 800 lives have been lost as such in this agitation. What are they going to get? If they get MSP, then what happens is, if there's a guarantee, you have an MRP also then. And say, fine, no, even the consumer have to be protected. 70% of the people are farmers and laborers. They also need to be protected. But at the same time today, if the farmer is getting only 1,200 rupees for his paddy instead of the MSP of 1940 or 1950, then he's losing a lot. And the trade is making. The trade is making a lot. And as the PM said, what you never showed right now was, he said, छोटे किसानों के लिए हमने किया है. छोटा किसान in eastern UP is getting 800, 900 rupees for his paddy.
तो इसके लिए तो प्रक्रिया अभी शुरू हो जाएंगे सर. इसके लिए तो ये संगठन, the formation of a committee is actually going to look at all these aspects that you mentioned and then come to a conclusion. Perhaps I would like to in fact ask T.S. Ramakrishna on this. As a policy expert, is it a rather tricky issue to decide on an MSP? Because after all, the government will have to purchase the farm produce in that price. Is that why there is so much dithering on this subject? Why is it such a tricky issue for the government to decide on the MSP price? And what are the factors that make it so complicated?
Okay, thank you. First of all, I want to say that this repeal of farm law is not a setback for India. It is a setback for Punjab. It is a setback for parts of Haryana and Western UP. Because essentially what the government has been trying to do is, they wanted to bring food balance, food produce balance, from the farmers, which has not been happening. And even in the absence of these laws, leave Punjab, Haryana, parts of Haryana and parts of UP, the other states can produce whatever the government and the people want, because we don't have a balance in agriculture produce. So we are producing grains almost twice that of what we are supposed to produce, and we run short of oil seeds and pulses and vegetables and fruits. So this has not been set right, because the government intervention comes as a economic distortion. So basically the protest of these farmers and traders is basically against crop diversification. They wanted to continue with the lazy farming, like we have heard about lazy banking, lazy learning. This is lazy, because the systems are set in their favor by the Punjab government for the last 30 years, where they get free electricity and they have pumped all the water from the groundwater, and they they have been making Punjab as a desert. We all say that Punjab is a state of 5 rivers, but it is a desert now because of exorbitant use of groundwater to cultivate paddy as well as wheat, not producing many other crops which require minimal water. So basically, it is a setback for the states which are for these states, not for the India. That's the first point. Okay. Second point is MSP. MSP is a very what all are the items that are there in the MSP? Basically, it is there in food grains and then pulses and then oil seeds. What about the items which are left out? Because the government cannot announce MSP for fruits and vegetables.
Yes.
And even then, you can't have a very constant formula of cost plus 50% profit for farmers across all the crops. Because the demand and supply varies. India is moving towards, consuming more and more pulses and then oil seeds and vegetables and fruits because of the rising income of the people, awareness about eating good stuff, not just, grains alone. So people demand for these things are, increasing.
Okay,
Look
so on that,
Mr.
Mr. Ramakrishnan, did I get you correctly that on that point you agree with the government, that it is not so simple to set an MSP price? It is not about loosening the purse strings of the government. There are complications involved because demand and supply vary, and therefore a set formula to decide on the MSP is not possible. But on the other issue of whether we should go back to status quo, you have your reservations and you're saying it's bad for those states where this APMC market. Yes, I do understand. So let me go back to the farmer representative that we have on the show here to understand from you, sir, that why is it, Mr. Singh, a problem for the farmers to begin with. And yes, I understand I'm going back to the old debate a bit to understand from you on this point that the existing system of APMC market, was it to the best interest of the farmers? What was the problem with changing over to a system where the government actually was trying to convince us that it would get you a higher price for the farm produce? Why was there so much resistance? Let's understand it clearly from you.
I want to ask you one thing here. Let's not just speak for the sake of speaking, as one is coming from this panel or that panel. These bills were in operation till the Supreme Court stayed it. At that point in time, we got 600, 700 rupees for the maize that was costing, the MSP was 1650 or 1670, whatever it was. That went for barley, that went for paddy, that went for everything else. So let's not get into that. And what I want to clarify one thing, because what you have said is not correct. What you have said out there is that the farmers, the government will have to buy the entire produce from the farmers. Not true. If the government is buying 6%, 7% today as MSP, let it buy 5%. But let it just say nobody in the country will buy them less than that, even the private traders. Why are you leaving the private traders alone? Because today, either you say one thing, you buy diesel, and if Reliance is coming in, somebody is coming at a lesser rate, we will not protect those people. We will not protect IOC with a blanket rate. You can also buy for less than that. Why is this? Why are the farmers just being left out like that? The government does not have to buy everything. It can say any trade in the country, this will not be below the MSP. End of the story. It's a very easy thing.
No, but to decide on that, which is what Mr. Ramakrishnan is telling us, to decide on that set price is difficult at this point, because the dynamic is such that to make an announcement of a fixed MSP price and to settle on it and to give it as a commitment is a tough call. Did I understand you correctly, Mr. Ramakrishnan?
Yeah, you are absolutely right. Nobody says that the government is buying all the food grains on, at the MSP price. So it is an indicative price. So like the way RBI announces repo rate and which will have an impact on deposit interest rate, this is also an indicative, rate by the government. And the government cannot buy. Actually, already our Food Corporation India godowns are, filled with so much grain. And if you want, despite India has given 25 kgs of food grains for every family for the last 1 year freely because of COVID impact. So you want, basically I am telling you, the farmer interest as well as the national interest can coexist. But unfortunately, the protesting farmers and the traders behind them, I won't say even just protesting farmers alone, the traders behind them don't want the national interest. They want only their interest to be protected, and they want let the Punjab goes to ruins, let Haryana goes to ruins, let Western UP goes to ruins.
But Mr. Ramakrishnan, the fact of the matter is, if the main stakeholders don't want it, if they are happy with the existing system, can the government impose it? Because ironically, they are asking for government regulation in this. The government wanted to withdraw stakes and say, okay, let this be a free market. Let the farmers be free to sell their produce anywhere outside the APMC. But yes, the fact of the matter is, if you make that tax free and if you have so many rules here, most farmers would like to go to sell in that private market, and that there is a strong possibility of APMC going redundant. So there is a genuine fear and apprehension of the farmers, which the Prime Minister admits very candidly that we failed to convince. So therefore, we'll have to leave it at that. Very quick last word to you, Mr. Singh. Going forward, what would be the timeline? Because now, are we going to see the farmers going back home? The protest, of course, will have to be withdrawn because that is what you wanted, that once the laws are repealed, we go back home. What would be the next step, sir?
Two quick points, very, very short points.
Yes.
Firstly, the government today is very clear on the fact that the farmers' interest is paramount. If that be so, we talk about the MSP guarantee, with Mr. Modi in his own thing has said, okay, fine, do it. Then when they have talks, if they have any, don't have talks with the people who say yes and no. Have talks with the people who actually believe, who know, who are experts. This is exactly when you talk about transparency. This is what the government should do, not pull up somebody from his house and say, fine, you come to the meeting tomorrow, get somebody else. And Western UP, my friend has been saying time and again, Western UP has sugarcane. These bills do not constitute anything for sugarcane at all. I have been
Yes.
fighting in the High Court and Supreme Court for the last 25 years for sugarcane, and we are getting the rates for the entire country from there. Western UP, Gazipur is totally blank today. Nobody is there. 100, 200 people don't matter. But yes, what we want as such is, we want the minimum support price for every commodity, including milk, because today in this country, milk is being sold for a lesser price than a bottle of water in the villages.
Okay, so those are again the next set of demands now, or the next set of ideas that will come up on whether the MSP can extend to other crops. Right now, we understand there's a very limited number that comes under it. We leave it at that. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us with your informed views on the subject.